Everybody, welcome back to the Identity Jedi Show. We are live from Las Vegas, Nevada, Identiverse 2023, hanging out. And of course, you guys know I couldn't do a live show in Vegas without the Godfather of Identity, Mr. Richard Bird himself. What's up, man?
Man, you know, I'm just trying to survive the heat in Las Vegas. So, but it's a dry heat.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
That always makes it better.
yeah. Other than that, it's inside of an airplane every week. Off doing, doing the stuff that I do now, API security. I will kind of just like, address the big question in the room. I've been doing it for about the last year. People are like, man, like, why'd you get out of identity? I kind of laugh because I say, look, like in 24 months, API security is going to be authorization security, which is non-existent. Right? People go, wow, we've got authentication tokens and we have authorization tokens. I'm like, that's not security, right? Those are keys and locks. And so I think that we'll see it morphing in the API security space to cover a huge part of the authorization plane. But that's future casting. Right now, there's plenty of stuff broken in APIs. We don't even have to worry about that stuff yet. But it's been a blast, and it's been a blast being outside of the identity space proper and helping companies and talking with organizations about identity, more as a freelance agent for good.
So what, you jumped right into it, right? So what would you say has been the biggest difference between like coming outside of identity and now, from a security standpoint, the conversations that you're having with customers and how they see it?
Sure. I think when you look at API security or AppSec in particular, the one thing that's different is something that I left off of about a year ago when I kind of officially stepped away from identity solutions companies, which was I was making a big stink about the fact that in identity we don't use security language, right? We talk about access administration, we talk about access management, we talk about attributes, roles, entitlements. We don't talk about attack surfaces. We don't talk about exploits. We talk about identity things.
Right.
And then the whole universe of our cybersecurity brothers and sisters out there have no idea what we're talking about. So the API security side for me has been an ability to get back into kind of operational and product security that does have security language as its foundation. And so it's been really, really interesting because it's fun and it is healthy for me to be talking about attack surfaces and reducing your attack surfaces, to talk about notions like trust in the way of implied and persistent trust, like stop doing authenticate once, provide access forever. Right. Stop assuming that authorization is what you should do because authentication happened. So it really has been fun to be back in kind of what I would call the true guts and wires of security. And I think that in the last year, I've seen some indications that identity is beginning to trend that way, especially with things like ITDR and those types of notions. I'd like to think that because I was making noise, maybe the folks at Gartner or somebody paid attention and thought maybe we should start using security language in this space. But that's really been the biggest difference. And working with folks that are really, really deep like I said, in the guts and the wires and the language. And the code of things like APIs and application security, it's been a good way to get my feet back up underneath me.
Yeah, that's nice, man. And once again, like you headed my next question, like the ITDR topic, Gartner's been talking a lot about cybersecurity mesh architecture. So I do agree with you in the fact that I think, and that's one of the things I'm looking forward to this week, to see how much it's kind of talked about, that identity is definitely moving more towards security. And they're trying to figure out, how do we talk about this, right? Like, how do we talk about security in an identity-centric way? And what does that mean? And I think we're going to go through this kind of stumble the next couple of years of figuring it out. And so we finally realize it's like, oh, they kind of have all this defined for us. We should just start talking like these guys. And we're going to see if we figure that out. But that's one of the things I'm really interested in attending the sessions this week and seeing like how people are talking about that, how they're addressing that. ITDR has been a pretty hot topic, and it's like all new things in this industry, right? You ask somebody right now, you can get 5 different answers on what it is. And so I'm definitely interested to see like what those are and what we end up coming to. For you, what are you most looking for? You look at some of the sessions that you want to check out or themes that you want to kind of pick up this week?
Well, first I want to riff on what you just said, because I think there's a really important, set of topics bundled up in what you just dropped, right? And I'm going to look at the camera and I'm going to say the Pings of the world and the Oktas of the world, the Oracles of the world, the IBMs of the world. You need to understand that there are a whole category of startup companies now over the last 24 to 36 months whose value proposition is providing security for identity. They're identity companies.
Right.
Right, and I'm not going to be crude enough to say like the emperor has no clothes, because I've worked in the large identity solution space, right? But it's become very, very apparent that there are perceived, whether they're real or not, perceived gaps in whether or not the entrenched identity players are actually providing identity security.
Right.
Now, I think that kind of tips into ITDR and identity mesh and the identity fabric concepts that are coming up.
Absolutely.
There's a part of me that worries a little bit, and this is what I really want to see on the floor. There's a part of me that worries a little bit that all of the creation of these expectations around ITDR and identity fabric and all of that are really addressing 20 or 30 years of shortcomings in the way that we've been doing identity.
Yeah.
Right. And the question becomes, back to what you said, the question becomes is there an appetite in the market that's been trained and indoctrinated on access administration? Is there an appetite in the market for solutions that are additive to or ride along with these identity players? Or do those large identity players kind of wake up, realize the existential threat that they're going to continue to face with these companies that are rising up, addressing this perceived gap, and will those solution providers then incorporate those capabilities into an overall platform? So I think there's a lot of questions, and one of the things that I'm looking for, at this Identiverse is to watch which way the compass needle is moving.
Yeah.
Right. I want to see if ITDR has legs. I want to see if things like the Gartner notions around identity fabric and meshes, whether that has legs. I also want to kind of see where people are going around elimination of implied and persistent threat or access and trust as it relates to zero trust models. So those will be the two. I want to see where ITDR is going. I want to see where ZT is going. And that's really what I'm going to be looking for on the floor.
Yeah, I'm interested to, I didn't get a chance to check them out a lot or talk to them at RSA, but CyberArk, and they're heavily leaning into this identity security platform play. Like they are all in on this, right? To the point where I would almost say aggressively marketing that they are like the sole identity security platform. And so I'm interested to see what they think that is and how they define it. And from the other practitioners and customers here, how they respond to that. If they agree that that's the same way, right? Because I do agree. I think over the next 24, 36 months, we're going to see this need from identity companies to feel like, hey, we got to get back into the front door. Like for those that don't have it, right? They're not SSO, they're not an authentication, not doing anything with orchestration. They really more on the heavy administration side. There's going to be this fight that like, hey, we're going to have to get back in that front door to have something there. And for some of the bigger identity companies that kind of already have that, how do we continue to evolve and grow this, right? And show that value, right? And it's going to be very interesting to see how they apply to that. When Okta first announced IGA and PAM, right? I kept talking about it. I put in all my newsletters. I was like, the platform wars have begun, right? Like Okta fired the first shot, and we've just been watching the shots go back and forth. Thomas Bravo steps in, snatches people up, right? CyberArk snatches up companies in the last couple of years, and now they're talking about identity security platform. Radiant Logic snatches up. You're just seeing all these after actions as things have been consolidating, which we've been saying has been coming for years. So I want to see how that plays out this week, how they market, how customers respond to it, and then how that matches up with some of the conversations from the sessions. Because I think it's going to be interesting to use this as a tell of kind of what's coming. And I know that it's going to be a lot of people are going to be cautious because the economic market we're turning into, so nobody's going to overstep too much. But I'm going to be interested to see who the aggressive ones are that kind of come out and really push and market towards something. Switching to sessions, any session that you saw that kind of caught your eye that you're interested in checking
Yours, man.
Well, okay. Easy.
Obviously. No, I've actually kind of decided intentionally to leave myself fluid coming into this, right? Okay. And this is my first time not presenting in 6 years. So I get a chance to really kind of take a step back, look at what is happening,
Yeah.
what conversations are happening on the floor. I'm excited about tonight's, opening session, right? I want to talk to, the old regulars, plus all the people that are, that I know of that are, practitioners in the enterprises, lots of old customers and that, and I want to see where they're inclining to,
Yeah.
right? What I can tell you is that if it's another session on how to clean up your Active Directory, I probably ain't going, right? Or if it's another session on why MFA is important, I'm probably not going, right? I'm here. There's a certain part of my attendance here that is about my odyssey, my journey that really started a year ago when I made an intentional decision to leave the identity solution space. My being here is to find the nuggets, to find the innovations that remotivate me as an identity solutions practitioner, right? And hearing a rehash of, what to do about your AD again is not the conversation that I want to have for the 24th year in a row, right? So I want to see innovation, and I want to see people. So I'm gonna base my session attendance off of where I see people's conversation directing energy and interest. And I'm going to pop in and I'm going to check them out, right? And I just, I can't have a conversation without having a contentious statement warning, right? I made some noise, last year about one of the reasons why I felt like I needed to step out was I wasn't seeing innovation anymore, right? And that still troubles me. But I think, kind of the tidal wave of AI, the tidal wave of breaches and exploits. Here's the bad news. We got to say the quiet parts out loud, right? Here's the bad news. The Verizon DBIR is going to come out again, and 80% of breaches are going to be through access and identity. And the largest problem in cybersecurity is going to be flagged again is probably ransomware.
Yep.
And this is the hard truth that we refuse to face in identity. Ransomware is a successful identity exploit at its core, right? Ransomware is an identity exploit. If ransomware is booming, we in the identity organizations, we in the identity community need to look at ourselves and say, why are we messing up so bad? And we still haven't had that self-reflective moment. We think ransomware is somebody else's problem relative to the security stack, right? But if you know how a ransomware attack happens, you know that it is nothing more than, credential aggregation and access and, all the bad things that we know that people used to do to get into databases. They do the same pathway to just lock down assets and then hold them up for, for ransom or whatever else they do. And I'm still looking for that bright shining moment of self-revelation within the identity trades that we've really got to change the way that we're thinking. So I hope to see some of that while I'm here.
Yeah, well, to add a little bit to that, right? It's because identity, they found their little niche in this little corner, and they said, we're just going to stay here. They didn't have to. Because if we're not active in these discussions about how we're defending and protecting these assets, we're not responsible for it. Like none of these organizations wanted to create a product and be in the direct line of fire. They didn't. They wanted to say, hey, like administration, this is hard, we'll deal with this and we'll automate over here. And so my thought on it is I would dare to say that identity became security accidentally because somebody marketed it that way. They thought it was cool. And then we all just went with it for 2 years ahead of it. And then we said, oh crap, we actually got to start really acting like security, which means we have to start actively getting engaged in these things. And how do we help prevent these breaches and ransomware? We got to start thinking of things like threats and vulnerabilities. And so it's this whole skill set now that they're trying to figure out if they want to build. And the biggest thing about becoming a corporation and you become successful, you get capitalized is you slow down. Yeah. You don't want to take as many risks anymore. So I do want to see like how these newer companies that have come up in the last 24 months, especially around ITDR, because of the fact of what they're saying, they're leaning into automation. They want to be more involved. How they're marketing that, and again, how the customers that we see here, how they're receiving that message, and whether or not it's resonating with the identity security leaders, and that always seems to come back to the CISO, the security leaders, because now it's like, okay, this is going to become more of your world and your reality. How are you blending the two? And how do they see it? So it should be good. So always, man, appreciate you coming through.
Happy to be here. Anytime you ask me.
Yep. So till next time, it's Identity Jedi Show. We're going to be here all week. We're going to have all kinds of great interviews, feedback, things coming for you. Catch you next time.